How's it going, my truant people? DrSlaking, the Slacking Doctor, back with the team builder for your Bowland Bovines for week 4 of the UBL as we go up against Frosted and her Copenhagen Sawsbucks, I want to say. I'm pretty sure that's right. As ever, Frosted's link will be down in the description, as with the rest of the UBL coaches. If you guys haven't seen already, there should have been a trade update video up yesterday, so hopefully you guys have all seen that, because we are going to be using one of our new traded Pokemon this week, so it's definitely important to check that out. But yeah, without wasting any more time, my quick thank yous are to my front office team. I believe I did one mock for this game with Aquarius very, very quickly. And a huge shout out to Aquarius, who I know is a super fan of Frosted. So we have a Pokemon this week named after Aquarius, so they could hear their name in Frosted's video, essentially. But there we go. So moving on, let's talk about Frosted's team, Frosted's draft. We have, she has, sorry, the Kartana, the Zapdos, the Suicune, the Donphan, the Incineroar, the Zygarde, the Hariyama, Lantern, Vileplume, Metang, and Mega Diancie. So Mega Diancie, obviously a huge offensive threat on every team. Vileplume can be a kind of bulky pivot mon that I've used myself before and think is superb. Often undervalued. Lantern is a very nice mon with 2 different immunities it can run, and a nice slow pivot. Hariyama could be a good breaker. Zygarde 10 with like Coil or Dragon Dance plus Z moves can be pretty scary. Remembering it is as kind of powerful as Zygarde, 50%, however it's much faster and frailer. Incineroar is a strange user, but something like SD plus Z Incineroar could be pretty scary. Flame Charge as well could be pretty scary in that way. Donphan, it looks like it's just like to be a spinner slash rocker in this team. It doesn't look like it's going to be hugely offensive. However, I have seen that she's run Scarf Donphan once already this season, so definitely can't take too much for granted with this. Suicune looks like a good Calm Mind setup threat against my draft in particular. Zapdos looks like it will be towards things like U-Turn Infernape, potentially spread around Static on, say, U-Turn Diggersby, as well as U-Turn Infernape. And then Kartana, if it comes, kind of has a rough matchup. I don't know. I don't think it can be Scarfed. I don't think there's any moves it's ever going to Scarf into in this game that's going to help it out. So I think it's rather be like an SD variant, but then I think it kind of wants Z, and it can't have Z against my team because she hasn't Z'd it. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like Kartana has a strange matchup, but I definitely need to be prepared for it regardless. So all that being said, let's kick off our team with what we brought. The first one that we've brought is Wukong the Infernape. So instantly, this one has quite a bit of bulk. We have quite a lot of HP and defense investment. Not tons, but like a little bit. So we can take like Leaf Blades from Kartana pretty nicely. We'll be able to eat those up pretty well. And then with the Fire Blast, Focus Blast, we hit nearly all of her team. Fire Blast for Zapdos, Focus Blast for Suicune, things like that. Grass not being able to hit the Donphan and the Lantern really, really hard. And then, of course, the Vacuum Wave basically just lets us revenge kill Scarf Cart. I have run Kartana enough to know that that thing can be a threat, and I do not want to let it set up against me. With the Expert Belt on here, we didn't need too much investment to be able to OHKO Scarf Cart if it's not like a timid variant of Kartana with lots of SPDF investment or something like that. But if it is a timid without Z, it's really going to struggle to do the damage that it wants to do. So with that in mind, I feel like this set was fairly safe. If we can just predict things like the Zapdos coming in and Fire Blast on them, predict the Incineroar coming in and Focus Blast on them, we're going to put a huge amount of pressure on my opponent's team. Grass Knot will do about 50% to Suicune if it's like a Fizz Def type of Suicune with Calm Mind, which is often what they run. So yeah, we have options here to kind of break through my opponent's team, and that's what this thing's about. It's just about coverage and breaking potential with the Special 8 with the Expert Belt. So hopefully Wukong can put in some work. Then mon number 2 on the team is the first kind of sweeper. This is the win con in most situations in this game. Emiliano with the Choice Scarf Moxie ability. If you look at my opponent's team, I was really looking at Earthquake on my opponent's team, and I was like, okay, Zapdos is immune. But that's about it, right? Other than that, Earthquake kind of rips through my opponent's team. If I can pressure my opponent's Zapdos and break that early game, then Scarf Earthquake pretty much is going to be GG with the Moxie boost. If we can get that Moxie boost rolling, we're just going to rip through. The only thing to really look out for is Scarf Zygarde 10, but I have ways to deal with that if it is a Scarf Zygarde. Other than that, there's no Scarfers on my opponent's team that can have Speed elements apart from Kartana. And again, I don't feel like Scarf Kartana has a good matchup, but I have switch-ins anyway. We've already seen 8 for the Leaf Blade and Smart Strike switch-in for 1. But yeah, I feel like this thing can really do work. I feel like this set in particular can really just rip through my opponent, and this was actually the set that I ended up sweeping Aquarius with in my mock, so it did exactly what I wanted it to do. All I have to do really is get rid of that Zapdos, because the static is the main issue. If I want to lock into, say, Dragon Claw, that would be problematic, or Outrage, or if I want to lock into Earthquake, then of course it being off the ground is a problem. But yeah, with my opponent only having 1 ground immunity, I really felt like Earthquake Spam was the way to go with this team. So, moving on to the third mon, you'll see exactly that. Warren here with the Swords Dance and the Pasho Berry. Basically, this is our kind of Calm Mind Suicune set. We will be able to take a +1 Scold from Suicune. We should outspeed like a bulky Suicune with our speed investment. I just want to double check my speed. Yeah, that's right. We should be able to outspeed like a fairly bulky Suicune with our speed replacement. We are jolly, nearly max speed. With the Pasho Berry, we'll take a +1 Scold. We SD on that, and then we click return. And essentially, my opponent sacks something. They do not have great switches to this mon. This is a secondary kind of lure to Zapdos. We have Special 8 that can click Focus Blast into Fire Blast to hit the Zapdos. Well, this thing can just spam return. And if I end up getting staticked, that's fine. But hopefully, I can just click SD and then Stone Edge and just wipe out the Zapdos completely. I don't think we speed creep a min speed Zapdos. However, Zapdos really can't do too much to me other than U-turn out and make something else take huge chip as well. Zapdos can't really touch me too much if it wants to run Hidden Power Ice or something like that, because we have quite a lot of HP as well as speed. We don't have max attack on this set. We will be able to eat up things like Hidden Power Ice or Hidden Power Grass, anything like that. It could Toxic me, but this Warren is here for a good time, not a long time, as they say, so I don't mind about being toxic. This thing is just here to break the Zapdos and potentially break the Suicune if it's a setup problem against us. Then moving on to the fourth one on the team, I spoke about having things to deal with Scarf Zygarde, and this is it. Crystal, our new trade, which will be nicknamed Aquarius in the battle, because I hadn't thought of a nickname for the battle for it, and Aquarius asked if I can nickname a mon for them, so I did it with Crystal at that point. But regardless, Crystal here basically can wall Zygarde pretty nicely. Even though we don't resist either of its stabs, it doesn't really matter. I think it needs to be like Banded Outrage to 2-shotters or Dragon Dance into Outrage to 2-shotters. So I really feel like Crystal can do a lot of work here just walling that Zygarde. We can always pivot out if it is like an Outrage variant. With Earth Power, we are able to hit most of my opponent's team, as I said, because they're the team I feel is relatively ground weak. And then we just throw out a Toxic onto the Zapdos if that thing wants to come in. And once again, now that we have double ground type, that Zapdos is really, really pressured in this matchup. I feel like it's going to have to pivot in as a main fighting resist, as a main ground resist. I feel like we can just absolutely pressure that Zygarde, because I'm looking at my opponent's team for other fighting resists, and it's like Vileplume, which we will get to shortly, how we deal with that. But yeah, if the Vileplume doesn't come, for example, then Zapdos is just so pressured by everything I've brought here, and that will free up that Scarf Earthquake on Emiliano. Anyway, the Toxic Stealth Rock Shore Up is all pretty self-explanatory. If we can get rocks up in this game, that just limits my opponent switching, because my opponent does have quite a bit of momentum with like the Incineroar and the Lantern for the slow pivot, Zapdos too for a relatively slow pivot if it's uninvested. So I definitely want to try and get those rocks up as early as I possibly can to shut down that momentum core that my opponent has. Now, moving into the fifth Pokemon on the team, we have Storm the Whimsicott, and this is our kind of Banded Outrage switch in if we see that the Zygarde is running something like that. We can throw out Storm, we can absolutely sponge up an Outrage, of course, being immune to it, and my opponent almost certainly needs to bring something like Iron Tail to be able to hit me, so I'm expecting probably like a Dragon Dance Z Iron Tail variant of Zygarde. That seems the most likely in this matchup to me, unless they want to bring like a Scarf to revenge kill my Dragon Dance Salamence, because also looking at the team, I'm not sure how they revenge kill Dragon Dance Salamence super well. So, like I say, that's kind of the two things I'm thinking. Maybe like a Banded Ice Shard from Donphan could be the solution there, or something like that, and that would give them Dragon Dance Zygarde. Not quite sure. But regardless, Storm can kind of do work here again, because like we've kind of been saying, my opponent's main switch into grass spam is that Zapdos once again. Kartana is not a switch in, it's going to take a whole lot if I click Moonblast. And Incineroar is a switch in, and it's a pretty good one, but it is going to take a bit from Moonblast too. They are then relying on either the Vileplume or the Metang, neither of which I think have the best matchup, the most likely one being the Vileplume, but I have a pivot sorted for Vileplume as the last one on the team, which we'll get to shortly. But in general, I feel like this can put in work. Now, you may see the Nature P there and think, what is Nature P? Nature Power is basically the move that changes depending on terrain. Now, neither of us have terrain, so you might think, why bother? Well, this is just a priority move on Whimsicott. Nature Power counts as a status move for whatever reason. So, for example, people would run like Tapu Fini plus Whimsicott in VGC a few years back, and they would get like Prankster Moonblasts. But with this set in particular, we can just get off a Prankster like tri-attack essentially. I think it's 80 base power. It might be 70 base power at normal. I'm not even sure. I think it just turns into Tri-Attack when it's in no terrain. So I think we get like an 80 base power move, and it's Prankster. So that means that we can hit the Kartana for like 40% probably with that, because it has no Spadef. But more importantly, we could hit Zygarde for like, I don't know, maybe 40% as well, 50%. So it's just a nice little bit of priority. I didn't feel like I needed anything else on this team, but it was a way to stop setup variance. For example, if Zygarde wants to go for a Dragon Dance on me, on something else on my team, and I get, say, 50% chip off, then maybe I can click Nature Power and pick up the KO, or maybe 60% chip off, I can click Nature Power and pick up the KO. It was just a nice little way, I felt, of having some cheeky priority that my opponent 100% would not be expecting. Encore is on there because this is my primary Suicune switch in, which is also why we're running lefties. We are just going to throw this thing out every single time Suicune hits the field. If it goes for sub, we encore. If it goes for Calm Mind, we encore. If it goes for Protect, we encore it. There's nothing Suicune can really do to this thing while this thing's around. Yes, we will get one down by hazards, and we're probably going to get burnt sooner or later coming in on the Scold, and if they click Ice Beam, that's a good play by my opponent, but there's nothing else I can really do. I want to stop that thing from getting Calm Minds at all costs, so that things like Diggersby don't have to use a Pasho Berry and instead can go in on the Zapdos. But yeah, that's the kind of thinking with this Storm set. And then into the final mon here, we have Big Steve, because as I said, the Vileplume is the other fighting resist on my opponent's team, it's the other grass resist on my opponent's team, it's the other U-turn Punisher on my opponent's team, being able to get off Effect Spores, just like Zapdos can get off Static. So I definitely do want something that can pivot in on Vileplume. And you may notice that I have the wrong name on Big Steve. I do apologize. Big Steve here shouldn't be called Storm. I apologize for the error in the graphics, but nevertheless, Big Steve here can pivot in on the Vileplume. And if it runs Sleep Powder, I have Sleep Talk, and I don't really mind which move I go for. It's not the best way, but I really wanted the Shucker Berry for the Mega Diancie, because you may notice that we have nothing for Mega Diancie so far, and whilst I don't think Mega Diancie has the best matchup because of Big Steve, if I don't bring Big Steve, suddenly it has a much better matchup. So Big Steve is here. Bullet Punch is the only Steel Stab I need to be able to hit Mega Diancie for sure. I can pivot on Moonblast. This is a very Spadef set and take like nothing. Earth Power is not going to do too much because we have the Shucker, so my opponent has to make a couple of very good predictions to get me there. And by that point, we've forced them out so many times that hopefully we're in a winning position with Salamence. Anyway, Zen Headbutt hits things like the Zapdos that could otherwise pivot on me. Earthquake stops the Zapdos from roosting up on me and getting too healthy. And in general, just hits things like the Lantern pretty well, as well as, well, everything. Like I said, ground spam is fairly free against my opponent. So that's the idea with Big Steve. Clear Body means that I believe that we wall Vileplume Strength Sap, so Vileplume can't even Strength Sap me down. So yeah, we are just free to spam Zen Headbutt against Vileplume and come in against it every time, even with Sleep Powder. It won't really matter with Sleep Talk on there. So yeah, I thought this was a pretty good set. In general, I thought this was one of my best quick builds of the season. I literally just sat down, looked at the matchup, threw this team together, did a mock, and maybe changed one or two EV spreads, if that. This team just really fell together really nicely first time of asking. And I think that, like I say, there are certain exploits with my opponent's draft, who I think, by the way, has a superb draft offensively, but maybe there are a few defensive exploits that I can try and take advantage of here with the ground spam and stuff. Having two ground types is pretty nice, as well as a Scarf, Moxie, Earthquake, Sweeper. So all that being said, guys, let me know what you think of the team. Are you a fan of it? Let me know what you think of the trades, of course, although I'm sure most of you already done that on the trades video yesterday. But regardless, I'll be back with the Week 4 battle against Frosted tomorrow. Hopefully you are looking forward to that. Thank you so much for loafing around with me, and I'll catch you again next time.